Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Interfaith Community Sanctuary on this beautiful spring May morning. My name is Sally Jo Gilbert de Vargas. I'm one of the co-ministers here at Interfaith Community Sanctuary. And we welcome you today to our Universal Worship Service. I've just lit the World Peace candles. We are always praying for world peace in the most urgent way we can possibly imagine. And we open our altar here because we have a collection of a great variety of sacred texts, books, with the wisdom of the ages, the wisdom of the centuries and the millennia stored in them, and we hope that their wisdom will flow out onto us during the service. And we also have a special altar here for the Divine Feminine, just to remind us that the Divine Feminine exists in each and every one of us, in everything in the universe, in the balance of the universe, in our human being, in all the other beings. There is both a masculine and a feminine energy, and we like to keep that in mind and access both energies equally as often as possible. So we will begin this morning with some opening traditions that we have. And the first one will be Rashid will, let me make sure I'm doing these in the right order. Yes. Am I right? Rashid will offer us the welcoming our ancestors and honoring our first people.
Okay, well, good morning. A very special day, of course. This is the time that we welcome our ancestors and we invite them to join us today. But in particular, I'm thinking about, mothers and grandmothers and great aunts and aunts of time gone by, because it's not just my ancestors, it's everyone's ancestors. So I just wanted to, I guess I'll just send some intentional feelings of respect and love for their gifts of sacrifice and warmth and just enduring love that continues to this day. And we honor our ancestors. In fact, ancestors will allow us to show us our gratitude for all your gifts, all the things that you've done for us. They basically taught us so many things. They showed us what hard work and dedication and perseverance can provide. In a way, they connect us. They are connectors. They connect us with the past. A very key connection from which we learn and we grow from. As we do someday hope to maybe connect our descendants with the present. So ancestors, we honor you and know that we will always remember you. I also would like to say that and acknowledge that we gather today on the ancestral homelands of the first peoples of Seattle, the Coast Salish, which includes the Duwamish and many other groupings, many other tribes. They came, of course, and settled this land centuries before we ever came here. They worked the land. They made this land a beautiful land. It was already beautiful, but they put their heart and soul and life into it. And yet this land remains unceded. And we hope and pray that their tribal sovereignty will be restored one day. And we also honor the indigenous spiritual leaders who gifted us with their acts of kindness and, most importantly, forgiveness. Blessed be.
Thank you, Rashid. And we have Elizabeth, who's going to offer our offering for the Divine Feminine this morning, and she has a reading for us. You can sit
in my chair. Okay. This is a prayer to the Divine Mother. It's for Rose Solari. O Divine Mother, in this extreme danger, when we and all sentient beings and nature herself, your glorious body, face unprecedented misery and destruction, Inaugurate in fierceness and tenderness the splendor of your age of passionate enlightenment. Bring us into the fire of your sacred passion for reality. Rejoin the severed mandala of our being. Infuse our bodies, our hearts, our souls, our minds with the calm and focused truth of your highest illumination that brings each of those things into mutual harmony. Engender in the ground of all of our beings the sacred marriage, that union between masculine and feminine, from which in each of us the divine child is born. That child that is flesh of your flesh, heart of your heart, light of your light. That child that is free from all dogma, free from all shame, free from all false divisions between holy and unholy, sacred and profane, free to burn out in love, free to play in love, free to serve in love, as love for love, in the heart of your burning ground of life. Teach us, O Divine Mother, directly at every moment in this hour of apocalypse, that the appropriate action that heals and preserves and redeems and transforms.
Thank you so much. We will take a few minutes now to talk about upcoming gatherings that are happening in our community. We have a very active community with lots of activities that go on all week long. And every day of the week, there are different groups that meet, meditation groups and study groups and gatherings. It's all on our website, day to day, listed out in order. And some groups meet every week, some meet every other week, some meet once a month. So it's really good to check and see which groups are meeting when. Most of them meet in person, but some meet online and on a Zoom call, and some meet in a more hybrid fashion, where they're also online and in person. And then we have special events that happen every now and then. And we have some very special events coming up this week, some that only happen once in a while. And one of them on Friday, this coming Friday, we have the Dances for Universal Peace are back on campus here. And these are led by Elizabeth DeQueen. And these are musically accompanied by live musicians, and we meet here in the sanctuary. And we do circle dances and singing songs of peace and beauty from all different traditions. We take the dances and the music is very easy to sing, easy to learn. It's repetitive in nature, and we do them in a circle, and there's nothing overly complicated about it, and it's very much a group process, and it's a very wonderful group energy that is created when we do these together. We're having that this Friday from 7 to 9. It'll repeat again in July. We're skipping over June because Elizabeth won't be here in June. So we have Friday, May 15th is our next one, and then the one after that will be in July, on July 17th. So all are invited to that. Many of you have probably participated this in other communities in this kind of Dances for Universal Peace. So all are welcome, and you can learn as you go. Also on Saturday afternoon, so that's Friday evening. Saturday afternoon, we're having our annual membership retreat. So people from our community will get together from 12:30 to 4:30 on Saturday, and right here in the sanctuary, and some of the time we'll spend upstairs, some downstairs, and we have an afternoon starting with lunch at 12:30 to 1:15, and then we will go into our program where Jamal and I have planned, along with some other people helping us, Elizabeth and Isla Ross will be and Gretchen Rowe will be helping us with different parts of the afternoon, where we will be exploring the energies, the three energies that we're learning about in our discernment this year: the energy of the meditator, the energy of the artist, and the energy of the warrior, the spiritual warrior. So we'll be delving into those that work on Saturday. That's May 10th, I think that would be. And that's from 12:30 to 4:30. I would like RSVPs on that. If you know you're coming and you haven't let me know already, just so we can get the right amount of food for lunch. And we'll provide lunch this time. And then on Sunday, of course, Jamal Rahman, our co-minister, will be having his Sunday service. And he's having music by Brenda Neff, again, who plays flute and piano. So she'll be offering the music. And we have a potluck luncheon after the third Sunday. After today, we have also a special celebration of whatever we need to celebrate among us, those of us who maybe have birthdays. We can celebrate Mother's Day. We can celebrate any anniversaries or any special dates that happen in May for anyone who happens to be present. And we'll have some snacks and some conversation time right after the service today. And as I said, there are other classes that meet regularly and other groups that meet every month. And so we hope you will keep an eye out on our website and join our email group that sends out, they will send out an email every Monday morning with what's coming up for this particular week ahead. And that helps us keep track of things. And each of us is responsible for asking that email be sent to us. I can't put you on that list, but you can put yourself on that list, and then they'll just want to verify your email that you, in fact, asked to be on the list, and then you will get our announcement every Monday morning. So feel free to do that by going on our website. There's a little place on the right-hand side of the website homepage that says join our list, and you can get that weekly reminder. So those are the upcoming gatherings, and then I'll turn this over to Rich for the next portion.
And, by the way, good morning, y'all. And I wanted to add another thing that's going on next week. I know it conflicts with the retreat, but next week on Saturday, starting at noon, is the annual walk for Indigenous and Immigrant Rights. And it starts at St. Luke's, goes down and across the locks, and then up to Daybreak Star. So, just wanted to let you know it's out there. And you can do both. I mean, you can come to this and go to that. You can go in and out. So it's great. Well, welcome everybody to all of you out there. Happy Mother's Day. And I want to include in mothers, grandmothers, aunts, great aunts, sisters, all the women in our lives who have helped to shape our lives and guide us. I have a great story about my mother that I'll tell briefly. My mother was the food and beverage manager at one of the largest hotels in Chicago, the Allerton on Michigan Avenue. And there's a law that you cannot sell day-old food. You've got to get rid of it. Whatever left over, it's got to be gotten rid of. Well, rather than just pitching it, my mother, when we were kids, whenever we had a day off, my mother didn't believe in days off, so she would drag us over to the restaurant to work. And we'd get there in the morning about 5:30, and she would immediately go to the fridge, pull out the day-old stuff, and have us distribute it to the, we didn't call them homeless back then, we called them winos and bums, but it was the same thing. We would distribute it to them. And my younger brother took great umbrage to this, and one day asked my mom, he said, "Why do you do that? Why do you give this food why do we got to go out there and give this food to these people?" And my mother cut him off with, "You never know when one of them is Jesus in disguise." Well, today's universal worship, we have a discernment that we've been doing, and we divide the discernment in two ways, okay? The first part is, what is the yearly discernment? And we look at that, and then each month we choose an aspect of it. Now, the aspect for today, I want to read it like they got it, so, because they write much better than I speak, is transforming suffering, understanding and cutting through the illusion of human being, and replacing our human-centric ideals with understanding that we are connected with all people. And this is actually attached to the yearly one, which is basically a Buddhist approach to saving the world. And it's based on a book by Thich Nhat Hanh on that subject. I believe it was his last book that he wrote. So this is what it's going to be about. And whenever we, those of us who've done it, whenever we've entered into like a spiritual journey, I know the first thing that we thought was, oh boy, how can I suffer? But suffering is a part of life, and it is a part of our spiritual journeys. Buddhism, which Thich Nhat Hanh, he was a Zen Buddhist monk. Buddhism's foundational principle is there is suffering. When I was picking Buddhist writings for this, I thought about taking the easy way out and just doing the Four Noble Truths. But I didn't. But the Four Noble Truths are basically there is suffering. Suffering is caused by desire. Now, I want to stop here for a second. The Pali word for desire is dukkha. And it doesn't just mean I'm suffering because I want a new TV. It's not that type of desiring of suffering. But what it is it's desiring things to be other than they are. Just basically sitting there and go, well, I would do something, but it sucks. And if it changed, then I would do something, but I'm not happy with the way things are. And Buddhism teaches that, no, you have to have some equanimity. You have to be able to walk through that world of suffering and maintain your compassion. So then, the third noble truth is that there's a way out of suffering. And the fourth noble truth is following what's called the Eightfold Path. And I'm not going to go through that whole thing, but there are things like right livelihood, right meditation, right contemplation, right knowledge. And they, help to put you on that path. But suffering is also a part of other religions too. And suffering can be something that can actually spark you. It can be an impetus to change. And we have examples of suffering throughout the different world religions. I brought up Buddhism. In Christianity, every year in Lent, we do this thing called the Passion of Christ, which is basically following Jesus from the time that he is arrested in the Garden of Gethsemane up through his death. This is not considered a cheerful time. But what it is, and people mistake, all we're doing is concentrating on Jesus died for you, Jesus suffered for you. That's important. But what we really should be looking at is how did Jesus face that suffering? And looking at that is, okay, how do I face suffering? How do I face the cruelty in the world? What do I do about it? So, given that, today's service is, it's called the Universal Worship. This is a ceremonial service, if you will, that was developed in the early 20th century by Hazrat Inayat Khan, who was the first person to bring Sufism to the West. And he developed this service, and it's a service to honor all the world's religions. That being said, I'd like to commence. So, thank you so much, Sally Jo. Yes, folks, you can't take it with you, but you can send some ahead. And so I wanted to say this, those of you who are here, we will, pass around the hat later. But for those of you out, in Zoom land or in that, what I wanted to say is you have several ways that you can contribute. You can go the old-fashioned way, write a check and mail it to us. On our website is our address. Also on the website is a make a donation thing that you can click on. And so those are two ways that you can send, an offering in. And it's important to us because this is an all-volunteer service. Nobody here makes any money off of this. We all do it for free. We all do it out of our love for interfaith, and our working towards interfaith. So to walk the spiritual path with practical feet, we got to keep the lights on and in winter the heat going. And so those donations are very useful for us. They're very helpful for us. Another way too you can donate besides money is time. Giving of yourself, even if it's just saying a prayer for us in the morning, it counts. Okay? If there's things here, though, at Interfaith directly that you think you can do, get a hold of Sally Jo or get a hold of Jamal and let them know. They'll talk to you about it. So that being said, we are now going to commence the service. So if I could have everybody rise. Those who can. We're going to do the invocation. Towards the One, section of love, harmony, and beauty, the only being, united with all the universal souls who form the embodiment of the Master, the Spirit of guidance. Be seated, please. Be seated, please.
To the glory of the omnipresent God, we kindle this light, symbolically representing the Hindu tradition. To the glory of the omnipresent God, we kindle this light, symbolically representing the Buddhist tradition. To the glory of the omnipresent God, we kindle this light, symbolically representing the Zoroastrian tradition. To the glory of the omnipresent God, we kindle this light, symbolically representing the Taoist tradition. To the glory of the omnipresent God, we kindle this light, symbolically representing the Baha'i religion. To the glory of the omnipresent God, we kindle this light, symbolically representing the Jewish tradition. To the glory of the omnipresent God, we kindle this light, symbolically representing the Christian religion. To the glory of the omnipresent God, we kindle this light, symbolically representing the religion of Islam. To the glory of the omnipresent God, we kindle this light, symbolically representing all those who, whether known or unknown to the world, have held aloft the light of truth amidst the darkness of human ignorance.
If everyone could please rise. Praise be to thee, most supreme God, omnipotent, omnipresent, all-pervading, the only being. Take us in thy parental arms, raise us from the denseness of the earth. Thy beauty do we worship, to thee do we give willing surrender. Most merciful and compassionate God, the idealized Lord of the whole humanity, thee only do we worship, and towards thee alone do we aspire. Open our hearts towards thy beauty. Illuminate our souls with divine light. O thou, the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, all-powerful creator, sustainer, judge and forgiver of all our shortcomings, Lord God of the east and of the west, of the worlds above and below, and of the seen and unseen beings, pour upon us thy love and thy light. Give sustenance to our bodies, hearts, and souls. Use us for the purpose that thy wisdom chooses, and guide us on the path of thine own goodness. Draw us closer to thee every moment of our lives, until it be reflected in us thy grace, thy glory, thy wisdom, thy joy, and thy peace. Amen.
You may be seated. A reading from the Hindu tradition. This is called The Design of Poetry by Kabir. The design of poetry. I look not from the secure shelter of Rama, but through that big hole right in the middle of time. That's the vantage point from which I see. A narrow, black, shiny strip of tarmac zooming out as if it were crossing infinity. But this thing called mukti, if you look at it from another angle, as rocks look at their inarticulate heat, or as trees look at it, then what is it? What is it? We offer to the omniscient God our reverence, our homage, and our gratitude for the light of the divine wisdom. Oh, thank you. We have a second reading for the Hindu tradition, Fever by Kabir. Without Rama, my body's fever won't go down. The fire burns in water. In water it flares. You're an ocean. I'm a fish inside you. I live in water, but water I crave. You're a cage. I'm the parrot inside you. What can death, that pouncing cat, do to me? You're the true master. I'm your disciple. A newborn child. Kabir says, we'll meet when the time has run its course. We offer to the omniscient God our reverence, our homage, and our gratitude for the light of the divine wisdom.
Rather than do a big sermon at the end, I'm going to do a lot of mini sermons in between and then close up with yet another mini sermon. Following what we call Jamal's rule, none of my speeches will be longer than his. But I wanted to bring up a couple of things with this one. First thing, you heard a word in there, a new word, mukti. And mukti is a Sanskrit word for liberation. It's akin to another Hindu word for that called moksha. So that's what that references is to liberation, liberation from rebirth. And Kabir, who wrote it, Kabir's an interesting character, and I kind of had my misgivings about using him for the Hindu section. And the reason is Kabir lived during the time of the Mughals. And the Hindus claim him as their own, so do the Muslims. And so does pretty much everybody else. He's one of those universal characters, kind of like Mullah Nasruddin in Sufism, where everybody wants to own him. But what I love about Kabir is I think he transcends all of that. And he was a weaver, and a lot of his poetry, he uses weaving as a reference, towards God. But in this one, I think what he was really talking about was the idea of the suffering that that he goes through in developing this poetry and bringing out his heart. In the beginning of the first one, the first section, he talks about it being a big hole. He's not in the shelter of Rama, he's in this big hole, this void as it were. And I thought about that. I work in psychiatry. And I remember having a patient once who had suffered some severe trauma years ago, and I mean they were almost in constant pain from it. Psychic trauma. I'm talking about abuse and that. And I was talking with them once, and they said, "Well, how do I get past that? How do I make that like that never happened?" And I said, "You can't. When something like that happens, you develop this big void." And you try and do all this stuff to fill that void. And you never do. You can't fill that void. What you can do is learn to make friends with it. Learn to use it, learn to let it become a part of you, and let it bring the full you out. So those are some things I wanted to share with you about this first, these first two pieces that we, listened to. And if you get a chance, check out Kabir's poetry. It's wonderful.
A reading from the Buddhist tradition. This is the death poem by Dojin. 54 years I've hung the sky with stars. Now I leap through. What shattering. We offer to the omniscient God our reverence, our homage, and our gratitude for the light of the divine compassion.
I picked a short one to balance out the two long ones, but the guy who wrote this poem, Dogen, is the founder of Soto Zen in Japan, and was another guy who lived in the 1200s. The 1200s seemed to produce a lot of really, really brilliant poets and spiritual guides. And I love the fact that what Dogen talks about here is he's gone through all this stuff for 54 years, He's hung to heaven and the stars, man. He's been active. And now he gets to say goodbye to all that and leap through it. And in doing so, shattering his own illusion, shattering his own suffering. So I just wanted to, it was one that I wanted to share because it's a poem that's meant a lot to me for a long time, short as it is.
A reading from the Zoroastrian tradition. This is from Yema Yashat 9. Give me that prize, O good, strongest Druaspa, that I may bring flocks of sheep and herds of cattle to Ahura Mazda's creatures, and bring them non-destruction, that I may remove hunger and thirst, old age and death, heat and cold, from Ahura Mazda's creatures for 1,000 autumns. We offer to the omniscient God our reverence, our homage, and our gratitude for the light of the divine purity.
The three of us here take turns picking the readings. We alternate, and then, it's like, I'll do it, this month, and, one of my colleagues will do it the next month, and the other one of my colleagues will do it, and then it's back to me. And picking these writings, it's a joy and a pleasure. It really is. And you get them all done and ready, except for Zoroastrianism. And that's where the work begins. Because we have so few of Zoroastrian writings. Okay, and so when I saw this one, it leapt out at me, and I was like, yeah. I felt very blessed because it's wonderful because it shows us, okay, Zoroastrianness, and most of the Zoroastrian writings are basically hymns of Zoroaster to Ahura Mazda being the Zoroastrian name for God. And this is one, and he's saying he wants to be a servant towards ending suffering. He wants to be active, okay? He does not want to fall into the web of dukkha, of wishing things were other than they were. Okay? He sees the world as it is, and he's like, God, how do I act on this? This is what I want to do. Okay, it's important because at his time when Zoroaster came, the Iranians were not one people. They were warring. And they were part of what was called the Aryans. And this isn't Aryans like Aryan Nation or that garbage. This was actually a people related to a language group, Sanskrit and Farsi, the Persian language, both come from this Aryan peoples, and as a matter of fact, so does Greek, English, and pretty much every Western language you can think of. But at the time, he was trying to end animal sacrifice for one thing, which was rife at that time, cruelty to animals, the cruelty to each other. He was trying to bring together the warring states in the areas of Iran and Afghanistan, much like Confucius later would try to do in China. So to me, this was a wonderful, wonderful verse to pick, because it is one where we actually have a prophet, Zoroaster, saying, okay, you want me to end suffering? How am I supposed to do that? And, he kind of gives you a way, so he gives you an example, and it's kind of like, follow me, do what I did.
A reading from the Taoist tradition. I received life because the time had come. I will lose it because the order of things pass on. Be content with this time and dwell in this order, and then neither sorrow nor joy can touch you. In ancient times, this was called the freeing of the bond. There are those who cannot free themselves because they are bound to things. But nothing can ever win against heaven. That's the way it's always been. What would I have to resent? We offer to the omniscient God our reverence, our homage, and our gratitude for the light of the divine way.
This is from the writings of Chuang Tzu, which are actually just called the Chuang Tzu. But he was a Taoist philosopher who lived maybe 100 years after, Lao Tzu was supposed to have, walked the earth. And if you get a chance to read his writings, now not this particular verse, but some of his writings are truly hysterical. They're incredibly ironic. And he points out some really wonderful stuff. He's great. He also likes to pick on the Confucianists a lot, which is fun to watch. But he's doing it from a spirit of collegial love, so it's great. What's important about this piece is we've all suffered loss, every one of us. We've all lost people in our lives, okay? I'm kind of reminded it's, at the church where I go, because I'm also Episcopalian, among other things, there's a section where you're praying for the dead, and it says, all of you, think about the people who you want to think about who've died and gone before you. And, I stop and I start thinking, and they go into the next prayer, and I'm like, wait. I'm not even close to the people I know who've died. Come on, give me some time here, We've all lost people. Chuang Tzu shows a way of facing it. Well, where this comment comes from is, if you read the paragraph before, a friend of his is berating him because he just lost his wife, and his friend thinks, I don't think you're showing the proper grief. Something we all need to hear when we're in the middle of grief, right? But in any event, and this is Chuang Tzu's answer to him. He says, it's not that I'm not grieving, but this is how I face my grief. And I think we can all take comfort from this verse, from what Chuang Tzu is trying to teach us here.
Our next offering is from the Baha'i religion. Be a shelter and refuge to every oppressed one, and a helper and supporter to every vanquished one. Be a skilled physician to every sick one, and a healing balm to every wounded one. Offer a safe haven to every fearful one, and bring comfort and solace to every dismayed one. Gladden the heart of every sorrowful one, and bring joy to every tearful one. Be as refreshing water to every thirsty one, and as heavenly food to every hungry one. Become the cause of glory to every abased one, and the source of blessings to every poor one. That's from the words of Bahá'u'lláh. We offer to the omniscient God our reverence, our homage, and our gratitude for the light of divine saintliness.
The Baha'i Faith began in Iran in 1844. And it started with a prophet forerunner of Bahá'u'lláh, a John the Baptist, if you will, called the Bab. Bab in Arabic means gate or doorway. Bahá'u'lláh became a Babi, a follower of the Bab, before he declared his mission. And he spent the last about 50 years of his life in prison. He was tortured, he was persecuted, he was exiled from place to place. He ended up in a place that's now in Israel called Akka, in Hebrew Akko, in a prison called the Siachal. And Akka was so bad at that time, it was a prison city, it was so pestilent, that in Arabic there's a proverb that if a bird flies over Akka, it dies. Yet throughout that, Baha'u'lláh kept his equanimity. And he was constantly preaching to people about, among other things, social justice, and that you needed to be there for others. Baha'u'lláh said, be passionately interested in the contingencies of your times. Be active. Even if you're suffering, like he was, you need to aid others who are suffering. And therein is your salvation from suffering.
We read from the religion of Judaism. This is a passage from the book of Job. Then the Lord spoke to Job out of the storm. He said, "Who is this that obscures my plans with words without knowledge? Brace yourself like a man. I will question you, and you shall answer me. Where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? Tell me, if you understand. Who marked off its dimensions? Surely you know. Who stretched a measuring line across it? On what were its footings set? Or who laid its cornerstone while the morning stars sang together and all the angels shouted for joy? Who shut up the sea behind the doors when it burst forth from the womb? When I made the clouds its garment and wrapped it in thick darkness. When I fixed limits for it and set its doors and bars in place. When I said, this far you may come and no farther. Here is where your proud waves halt. Have you ever given orders to the morning or shown the dawn its place, that it might take the earth by the edges and shake the wicked out of it? This continues. The Lord said to Job, will the one who contends with the Almighty correct him? Let him who accuses God answer him. Then Job answered the Lord, I am unworthy. How can I reply to you? I put my hand over my mouth. I spoke once, but I have no answer. Twice, but I will say no more. Then the Lord spoke to Job out of the storm. Brace yourself like a man. I will question you, and you shall answer me. Would you discredit my justice? Would you condemn me to justify yourself? Do you have an arm like God's? And can your voice thunder like his? Then adorn yourself with glory and splendor, and clothe yourself in honor and majesty. We offer to the omniscient God our reverence, our homage, and our gratitude for the light of the divine covenant.
Is everybody here familiar with the story of Job? Job starts out the book as a challenge to God from Satan, Shaitan. Now understand, Shaitan isn't this guy with the horns and the red union suit that he seems to have devolved into. What the word Shaitan means in Hebrew and in Arabic is the advocate. He's the guy who stands there and points out to God, now wait a minute. And he doesn't awake, because, God is bragging. Look at my servant Job, he's great, he's pious, he worships me, he keeps all the laws, all 613 of them. That's how many are in the Torah, by the way. And Shaitan says to him, yeah, the guy's got family, he's got a house, he's got wealth. What doesn't he have to be grateful for? Of course he's going to worship you, he's grateful to you. Take that stuff away and see what happens. Well, God rises to the bet. And he takes all of it away. The only deal is he tells Shaitan, do with him what you want. Everything short of killing him. But that doesn't stop him from killing off Job's entire family, his cattle, his sheep, everything. By the time Job is saying the stuff that he's saying in this challenge, he's basically sitting naked in an ash heap. Okay, he is not a happy camper at this point. Now, this is also the point at which you get into one of the principal things about Judaism that I love, arguing with God. And that is a long tradition in Judaism. There's a story that a group of rabbis were arguing over what a verse in the Torah meant. And this one guy was arguing against what everyone else was saying. And they were like, no, you're full of it. This is what it means. It's not what you're saying. And the guy throws up his hands and says, God, if I'm right, show a sign. Big booming voice comes out of the sky that says, I am God, this man is right. The other rabbis tell God, shut up. We got the Torah and we can figure it out for ourselves. It's a real story. The reason why I picked this, though, was when we suffer, we all are like, why me? We really are. And that's, that's human and that's realistic. Why me? Why, particularly when it's unfair. Why me? Why is this happening? And what God's trying to say here is, there's plans in the universe, there's a setup in the universe that really can't answer all of it for you. My own belief when I say why me is that God doesn't know any more than you do as to why this, That, in my beliefs, is not how God works. But the way God works in my beliefs is God is there to suffer with you. Okay, and you see that later in other verses in the Jewish writings. The Jewish Bible can be divided into three parts: the Torah, the Ketuvim, which is the writings, which is where Job is from, and the Navim, which is the prophets. That's Isaac and Jacob. Well, no, Isaac and Jacob are not prophets. They're ancestors. It's more along lines like Ezekiel and folks like that who are the prophets. But this comes from the writings, and what it's trying to show us, I think, is just that, the universe is vast. We don't always understand why things are happening. What we do know is that we're not alone, and that there are others, including God, who suffer with us. And that can, in many ways, give you strength.
From the religion of Christianity, we offer the following scripture. It is a credit to you if, being aware of God, you endure pain while suffering unjustly. If you endure when you are beaten for doing wrong, what credit is that? But if you endure when you do right and suffer for it, you have God's approval. For to this you have been called, because Christ also suffered for you, leaving you an example, so that you should follow in his steps. That's from the first book of Peter. We offer to the omniscient God our reverence, our homage, and our gratitude for the light of the divine self-sacrifice.
I've been in a couple of Bible classes where a question has come up as to who, outside of Jesus, is your favorite character in the New Testament. And I've heard Matthew mention it. Paul gets mentioned a lot. I have a love-hate relationship with Paul that goes on for decades. My favorite character is Peter. And my favorite character is Peter because Peter is a constant screw-up. Throughout the Bible, he has a hair-trigger temper. He goes off at the slightest thing. He keeps getting things wrong and Jesus has to correct him. But he keeps on keeping on, and through it all, he eventually comes up with the right answer, for him. But it's generally after he's basically banged his head against the wall several times. And it's why I like him. And what he says here is very interesting. It kind of feeds into Job for me in many ways, and that is, it's easy to suffer when you know why you're suffering. It's easy to endure it when you had it coming. But how about when you're suffering for no fault of your own? I look at, when I read this, the people I thought about were the homeless population, most of whom are suffering for reasons beyond their own. I mean, they'll say we're all like 2 paychecks away from being homeless in our society. And when you pass these folks on the street, I've seen actually people, yell things like get a job, stuff like that. It's like, don't you think they would if they could? These are people who are suffering for no fault of their own. And they bear it. They have no choice, but they bear it. And when you look at them, you should realize, first off, reach out to them. If you see somebody, say hi. Reach out to folks. Do what you can when you can. And understand, that there are times when we suffer through no fault of our own for no reason we can think of.
From the religion of Islam, we read a poem by the Islamic poet Rumi, Maulana Rumi. This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice. Meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. We offer to the omniscient God our reverence, our homage, and our gratitude for the light of the divine unity.
I love Rumi. I love a lot of the Sufi poets, Rumi, Sadi, Hafiz. They're wonderful and they have a lot of wisdom to share. And when I picked this, one of the things that I loved about it was the idea that what can seem bad now may lead to something good. And what's good now may lead to something bad. My ex-wife used to say, a prophet in her own right, my ex-wife used to say, the problem with people is that when the good times come, they think they're never going to end. And when the bad times come, they think they're never going to end. But the only constant in the world is whatever time you're in, it's going to end. And, Rumi talks about that here when he says, think of yourself as a guest house. Happiness is going to come, sadness is going to come, sorrow is going to come, joy is going to come, etc. And it can often lead to the exact opposite. There's a story in the Quran, there's a character in the Quran, Al-Khidr. And for those of you who come from a pagan world, you might be tickled to learn that Al-Khidr in Arabic means the green man. And Khidr is not just a prophet, but in ways he's a prophet to the other prophets. He kind of leads them, and there's a story in the Quran that Moses begs Khidr to let him follow him. And Khidr is not nuts about the idea, but he finally, Moses keeps begging and begging, and finally Khidr says, all right, you can follow me around, but I want no comments from you or arguments from you about anything I do. You just follow me around, okay? So he follows him around, and he goes to these various things where Khidr does something that in Moses' eyes seems truly bad. And Moses can't help himself. He can't keep his mouth shut. So he's like, why'd you do that? Finally, Khidr's had it after about, the fourth or fifth time of saying, look, just trust me, okay? I told you, don't argue. And finally goes, okay, look, A, you got to stop following me. You're driving me nuts. B, okay, the reason I did this was for this and this. And it turns out that all these bad things were done to have a good outcome that, Moses couldn't see at the time. But Khidr knew. And the whole point there that I'm trying to make here, and that Rumi is trying to make, is even when you're in bad times, something good may come of them. But also remember, even when you're in good times, something bad might come from it, and be prepared. Wherever you're at, be content with that and prepare for the next phase.
Let's take a moment of silence.
If everyone would rise for the second prayer. Most gracious Lord, Master, Messiah, and Savior of humanity, we greet thee with all humility. Thou art the first cause and the last affect, the divine light and the spirit of guidance, Alpha and Omega. Thy light is in all forms, thy love in all beings, and a loving mother, and a kind father, and an innocent child, and a helpful friend, and an inspiring teacher. Allow us to recognize thee in all thy holy names, as Sita and Rama, as Radha and Krishna, as Shiva and Shakti, as Buddha. Let us know thee as Abraham, as Solomon, as Zarathustra, as White Buffalo Cap Woman, as Moses, as Jesus, and as Mary, as Muhammad, and in many other names and forms known and unknown to the world. We adore thy past, thy present deeply enlightens our being, and we look for thy blessings in the future. O Messenger, Christ, Nabi, the Rasul of God, thou whose heart constantly reaches upward, thou comest on earth with a message, as a dove from above when Dharma decays, and speaks the word that is put into thy mouth, as the light fills the crescent moon. Let the star of the divine light shining in thy heart be reflected in the hearts of thy devotees. May the message of God reach far and wide, illuminating and making the whole humanity as one single family in the parenthood of God. Amen. Okay, now please be seated. Oh, right.
Do not weep with the sad, but console them. If not by your tears, You will but water the plant of their sorrow. This is from the Gayan of Hazrat Inayat Khan. We offer to the omniscient God our reverence, our homage, and our gratitude for the light of the divine truth.
Okay, this is the part that says sermon and practices. We're going to do very little sermon, we're going to do more practice. Basically, as we said, most of these writings had to do with some aspect of suffering. How it comes, how we face it, what can come out of it. And so what I'm going to do for a practice is I'm going to have y'all do a brief meditation. So what I want you to do is, sit up straight, as my second grade nun used to say, in a position where you're comfortable. And I want you to close your eyes. I want you to basically, inside, count backwards from 10. And with each number, you become progressively more and more relaxed. Okay, now I want you to bring back in your memory a time in your life, a difficult time, a time where you were suffering. You either had a loss of some kind or something happened to cause you pain. And I want you to consider it, and I want you to look at it. But then I also want you to recall what came from it, what it led to for you, what kind of strength it built in you, what kind of knowledge it gave you. Now, I want you to bring yourself back to center and slowly bring yourself into focus. Open your eyes when you're ready. I have always noticed when doing meditations like this that while you're in the middle of it, it seems like it's an eternity. It was only 3 minutes. So out of this, I want you to, bring the thing of, when we're talking about suffering, to be glad that I didn't ask you to meditate for 30 minutes. No, I'm just kidding. But that, I'm not going to ask you to tell us or to share with us what your moment was. But I'm going to ask you throughout the week to contemplate on it, what it meant for you, how you came out of it, and what it means for you today in this time. Now, hold on. So now I'm going to ask everyone to rise, and we're going to do the third prayer. O thou who art the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the Lord of heaven and earth, open our hearts that we may hear thy voice, which constantly comes from within. Disclose to us thy divine light, which is hidden in our souls, that we may know and understand life better. Most merciful and compassionate God, give us thy great goodness. Teach us thy loving forgiveness. Raise us above the distinctions and differences which divide us. Send us the peace of thy divine Spirit, and unite us all in thy perfect being. Amen. If everyone can remain standing, the Chirags would like to give you guys a benediction. A blessing. Message of God is upon you. May God's peace abide with you. May God's presence illuminate your hearts now and forever. It's at this moment that we usually say goodbye to the folks out in, but wait for it, Chris, out in Cyber, out in Cybernet. Thank you. I'm blanking on that. Before we do, I wanted to leave you guys with a prayer. It's from the Baha'i writings again, and I'm going to ask my buddy Joey to read it because that's over here. Just this last paragraph, because my voice has gotten a little bit scratchy. So this is just a prayer to send you guys off with.
O my servants, sorrow not if in these days and on this earthly plane things contrary to your wishes have been ordained and manifest by God. For days of blissful joy and heavenly delight are assuredly in store for you. Worlds, holy and spiritually glorious, will be unveiled to your eyes. You are destined by him in this world and hereafter to partake in their benefits, to share in their joys, and to obtain a portion of their sustaining grace. To each and every one of them you will, no doubt, attain.
And now I want to say goodbye to all the folks out in Cyberland. Have a good week, guys. Have a happy Mother's Day, and God bless you all. Everybody else, if you want, we can sit down again. And now it's a time in our service that we kind of call the sharing of hearts.